Welcome everybody. How is everyone? It is Tuesday, June 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia here in Canada. And I think this is episode like 292. We're getting very, very dangerously close to episode 300. And we will reach episode 300 before the end of the year, which just blows my mind. I just can't believe that we're almost sitting at 300. It's just unbelievable. It's so great to see everyone. Thank you so much for being here in the live chat today. I'm going to say hello to Dagmar and Eve, Dana, Alberto, Glenda, Lisa, Tessa, Christine, Elaine, Eveline, Rebecca, who's coming to us from Switzerland. She's on her sabbatical with her husband and their kids. Really exciting. And hello to Lisa. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. And I know there will be more people that'll join as we get up and running, and it's just really nice to have you guys here. Hello to Amy. I hope this finds you all very well. The kids, this is actually their last day of school today. James, I've mentioned it many times on the podcast this year because it's been such a challenging year. He has a well-deserved break coming up. The poor guy, he needs some time off. Norah has not had a great year, but she is nearing the end and she's looking forward to being done. So today is their last day. They've got portfolio reviews and conference next week with their teachers, and then they are free and clear. So that's really nice. I'm glad that we're into the home stretch and we can get on with the summer. We know who Norah's teacher is going to be next year. I love her. She's wonderful. Norah had her for grade 3. And she'll have her again now for grade 5, which is just wonderful. So really positive. Other than that, we have a very busy week, a month ahead of us in our family because I will be orientating at work for a clinical resource nurse position. I'm still going to be casual. The podcast is still the priority, but it'll be nice to have a slightly different role when I go into work. I'm looking forward to that. So I have to fit in extra shifts this month to get orientated and up and running with that. So looking forward to that. We have lots going on over here that I want to chat about today. I've got a finished spin to share with you that's quite substantial, and a spin in progress that I wanted to mention and talk about. And we've got lots of stuff happening in terms of like what's kind of happening in the community. So we'll go over that. I just picked up Always in December. I know it's a Christmas book in the middle of June. Emma Stone, she's a British author. I love her books. One of my most favorite books by her is Love, Holly. It's like meant to be like the signature at the end of a letter. It is a beautiful book. And so far I'm really enjoying this. She's quite funny. I really enjoy British authors, and when I saw that the library had this, and I know it's not Christmas time, but it's a good book. It's more about sort of loss, and it is a romance. I do love women's fiction, and I hate that we have to call it women's fiction. That drives me batty. But anyways, yeah, it's a good book. So anybody looking for sort of a Christmas in July read, pick up any of Emily Stone. I really enjoy her books. I really like them. This is the last of her books that I haven't read. I've read all of her other books. I know I didn't read them all at Christmas time. She only writes Christmas novels, which is kind of fun. So kind of neat. All right, on to what's going on in the community. We always have lots going on right now. As you guys saw here at the beginning of the show, before I changed the screen, we're doing our 2-year study of Spinner's Book of Yarn Designs. This is Sarah Anderson's book. This is a staple for most spinners, most hand spinners. Once you sort of get over the initial hump of making that continuous single, after that, this book generally goes onto every hand spinner's library bookshelf. And it's funny because it's one of those books that came up again and again and again that people wanted to study together as a book study in the community, and we wanted to sort of do this book, but I kept putting it off because I felt like we weren't quite there yet. We did 51 Yarns by J.C. Boggs Faulkner. That was an excellent 2-year study, and then we sort of went down the rabbit hole of doing a lot of sock yarn stuff, and we looked at yarn structure and all that kind of stuff. And then we kind of moved back toward the year of color. Rebecca came on board, and we did a deep dive into the color contrast. Rebecca did a whole thing about dyeing. Year of color was huge. And toward the end of the year, there was this feeling in the community about wanting to sort of get back into another book study. And I didn't see how we could do this book in less than 2 years. It just feels like a big book. It is a big book. It's a tomb of knowledge. Sarah Anderson did a wonderful job writing that book and spinning for it. And like, it's a wealth of knowledge. So that's what we're doing. And so the places to engage to sort of do the book study with us, we don't get together in sort of a book club format. It's more of sort of different places that you can engage. So I release Spinning Pearls content if you're a Patreon member. Even if you sign up just at the lowest tier every month, you get the regular every Sunday at 2 a.m. Pacific. You get the Spinning Pearls release. So the idea is that on Sunday morning when you wake up, most people have sort of a lazy Sunday. Most people, unless you're in sports like us. You know, if you attend church or synagogue or anything, it's usually not at 7 in the morning. But it's sort of nice to have that email there in your inbox to sort of peruse and watch a video. And so that's Spinning Pearls, and that's about a specific topic from the book that we have explored in the past here in the woolen spinning community. And so coming up in June is all of the, we're kind of pivoting a little bit. Last month we did singles in Spinning Pearls, and now this month we're actually pivoting a little bit away from the stunning singles that Rebecca's doing in the wool circle. In Spinning Pearls, we're going back and looking at all the classifications of sheep breeds and all the classifications of wool. So a little bit of a pivot because we've got a lot of people in the community that are newer spinners, really just dipping their toes in. The summer is a wonderful time to get your hands on some of these different breeds. So that's what June's Spinning Pearls is all about. The Wool Circle, which I just alluded to, is the other live stream. So I do the live stream every other Tuesday. Rebecca does the stream that is the opposite Tuesdays to the live. And so the Wool Circle is exploring singles right now. They are looking at felting singles and thick and thin singles and what it takes to make singles that are structurally sound and create a structurally sound fabric, all sorts of stuff. Now, if you want to sit down with other people and you want to engage with other people, Spinning Staples is the place to go. So that's the Zoom group that meets twice a month. Again, Rebecca heads up that group, and they are sort of following along with the content. There's a little bit of homework that you can choose to engage in or not engage in. And then Queries and Explorations is completely separate. It's another Zoom group that meets on Saturday mornings twice per month. And we basically explore what you guys want to explore in sort of a community of people who want to take their spinning to the next level. It's an open conversation about all different things. And recently we've been talking about barriers to larger spins. What are our roadblocks? What are the things that slow us down, etc., etc. So if you have any questions about any of that, please don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm happy to explain all of that stuff in more detail to you one-on-one. All right, so the Wool Circle will be streaming next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, same time, same place as this, for people who are part of the Wool Circle. When you go to Patreon, if you click on the Wool Circle, there's a 7-day, 1-week free trial, and you can go back and watch a bunch of the previous episodes to see if it's something that you want to participate in. And Spinning Staples, they are meeting next Wednesday, but that's the last Wednesday that they will be meeting. After that, they are transitioning to Thursdays. So for those who are interested in joining Spinning Staples, just make a note that it will be on Thursdays at 12 noon Pacific, starting toward the end of the month. And I think that's it for all of that. And then, of course, if you're a part of the Slack channel, which is the Spinning Circle on Patreon, there are all of these Zooms and all of these Zoom links that are constantly coming up on the Slack channel. If there is a Zoom link, you are invited to join that group at that time on that day. So Spin Group meets on Tuesday mornings and Thursday Thursday morning British Summer Time. So Tuesday morning Pacific Standard Time, and then Thursday mornings British Summer Time. Sorry, so it's a bit confusing, but 2 spin groups, and then we've got fiber prep group and weaving group that meets on Fridays. So lots of places to engage. There's always something going on, and of course there's also Maker Morning that's run by me twice per month as well. So there's like, in one given week, I was looking at the calendar actually. In one given week, there's at least three Zooms that are going on every week for people to engage and to join. And you can talk if you want to. You can leave your camera off if you want to. You can leave your microphone off if you want to. You can just join. You can be quiet. You can engage if you want to. Obviously, you come a couple of times, you're going to get to know people, and they're an incredibly kind, generous, compassionate group of people. Sometimes they talk about life. This morning we were talking about all sorts of different things. It turned into a small business brainstorming session, which I loved. And there's just so many really positive things that come out of that. Last but not least is book club. So that's in the #books channel on Slack. And if you're having trouble finding the channels on Slack, please just let me know. There is a video that's in the show notes that you can watch to sort of help you get up and running. I know a couple of people recently messaged me and said that they really appreciated having that. This is the video here. I'll throw it into the chat. And that will give you a rundown on how to use Slack, what it looks like, how our community runs. And so right now, Becca runs our book club. Everybody's invited, anybody who's part of the Slack channel. And the book we're doing right now is by Maggie Jackson. It's called Uncertain, The Wisdom and Wonder of Being Unsure. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to book club on the 23rd because we're going to be in Portland. However, we're going down for 2 soccer games, and I think Sunday at noon, I think that's one of the soccer games. However, I am really enjoying this book, so I will post my thoughts in the books channel, and dear Becca can share them with the group. But I'm really enjoying this book, and I think Becca actually wrote that she was really enjoying this book as well. She said, I thought she wrote. Just looking. Anyways, I think she had mentioned that she's really enjoying it. Tina got her copy, and she's been enjoying it. So yeah, anyways, come and join us. Book club is a really, really wonderful group. Very thoughtful, and you don't have to finish the book. If you've only started it or you kind of got stalled on it, still join. It's a lot of the same people, and it's just really wonderful people. Yeah, Lisa says she wants to go to Portland. I think we should go to Portland and have a woolen spinning meetup because there's a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest that could probably get there, and we could have a gathering at Black Sheep next year. Of course, I say that, and then I feel a bit of a I don't know what the right word is, but a little bit of an imposter saying that because I don't even know if I would be able to get to Black Sheep next year. But maybe that's something that we can explore. Part of the problem is childcare for me. Although I would probably bring the kids, but it's timing. It conflicts with a whole bunch of stuff right when Black Sheep is. But anyways, we're going down for Vancouver Whitecaps are playing the Portland Timbers for those who are into soccer/football. And the Portland Thorns the Timbers and the Thorns, they play on the same weekend. So the NWSL and the MLS, they play on the same weekend only a couple of times in the season. So we always look at the schedules when they're published, and then we pick the 2 or 3 weekends that they play on the same weekend. We look at the family calendar, okay, which ones can we go? And then we go down on that weekend so that we can catch both matches. And it just was a total coincidence this year that the Timbers are playing the Whitecaps on the same weekend for that particular match. Whitecaps should win, but we're not sitting in the Whitecaps section. We have just general entries, so we have to wear our Timbers support stuff. We can't wear our Whitecaps stuff. So I said to Mike, I'm like, maybe we should wear both. He just laughed. But anyway, so we're going down the weekend of the 20th, I think. we're not organized this year like we were last year. It's just because of some other stuff that's going on that we're waiting to hear about. So anyhow, but I always thought Portland would be a really good place to meet. I know Eve really wants me to come to Wonderwool. One day I will absolutely come. We're talking about bringing the kids to England in February. There's a couple of things that we want to do. There's a couple of family things that I want to do. So anyways, anybody that's kind of in the London, Manchester, because we'll be in those two area, we'll have to chat about opportunities if we end up going. We're sort of saving our pennies right now and having a discussion. So, it's nice to be able to actually talk about traveling. And then the other thing that I want to mention, I know Rebecca has mentioned it on the Wool Circle, I am going to Knit City, Calgary. So me and Rebecca are going together. I'm bringing Norah. So we do need to have a conversation. Anybody in the community that wants to do a little bit of a meetup, maybe on Sunday, please reach out. And I'll post something in the Ravelry group so that anybody who's around, we can connect. So, because that would be really fun. I'm really hoping, Kelly, that you're coming down from Edmonton. So anyhow, without further ado, let's get into the show. So Fiona says she just joined the community, and I just added her the other day to the Slack channel, which is wonderful. Welcome. And she said, I just joined and I'm so overwhelmed by all that is offered, what to do, how to know everything that I have access to, etc. One of the things that I will say, and I totally understand, I totally get it. We've been doing this now we're in our 7th year right now. So like it's a lot. I think it's actually even more than that if my memory serves. I think we're actually in our 8th or 9th year. Anyways, I should probably know that. I just know that June of 2026 is our 10-year anniversary. There is a lot and it is overwhelming, and that's totally okay and that's totally normal. So if you have any questions about anything, don't ever hesitate to post it under #general in the Slack channel. There will be at least 10 replies, and you can always message me directly if you're wondering about something. So don't feel overwhelmed. Know that yes, there is a lot. Know that yes, we will help to get you navigating it and everything. Thanks, Eve. Thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate that. Because I will change it. All right, let's talk about all the things that I have been working on. I just need to pull up my show notes because we're already completely off the beaten track. And I forgot to tell you guys about Woolen Spinning Radio this month, and it's because I forgot to throw it into the show notes. Woolen Spinning Radio this month, it can be grabbed anywhere that you get your audio podcasts. Just search Woolen Spinning Radio. I interviewed my friend Melissa for the show this month. She's going to come back on hopefully in the fall. She's Melly Knits on Instagram. She's a powerhouse. She's probably one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. Her and I kept coming across each other at like Knit City, and then we came across each other at Fibers West. We just kept meeting and keep crossing, and then we happen to be part of the same knitting and spinning group that meets once a month, and so we've really gotten to know each other through that. We've got a couple of common friends, and in real life friends, I mean. And Brittany of Crux Fibers actually introduced us. Anyhow, long story short, she's hilarious. She's very, very funny, but she's a wonderful perspective on things and perspective on washing wool. Their goal this summer is to wash 100 pounds of wool every month once the weather improves. And her whole business is around fiber prep. She just she cards bats, and that's what she sells. They're all from Fleece, and anyhow, long story short, it's a really fun episode. Definitely go check it out. In terms of what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to start off with my Dorset spin. So my Dorset I've been working on for quite a long time, and I meant to look up when I actually started working on it, but I couldn't find like exactly when I started working on it. This was a fleece that I bought. My friend Kelsey bought it, and we split it 5 ways between her and her mom and Diana Twist, who's part of our community. You guys will know her, and myself. So sorry, 4 ways. And I had this, it was in my stash. It's something I've wanted to work with for a really super long time. We talked about this quite extensively when I first started playing with it. I thought I had a photo of the original locks, but if you remember the intro credits just now, and there was the lock pop and then the pop locks and then the raw locks, that was the Dorset. And that's what it looked like before I lock popped it and then carded it. So my original plan, because the staple length was 5 inches, I think it was actually closer to 6. It was quite long for a Dorset. It was a Dorset down, just for those who there's Dorset down and Dorset horn are 2 different sheep breeds. It's very confusing. They're not the same. So this was a Dorset down, and of course, now that I say that, I think it might have been a Dorset horn. It doesn't matter. Dorset, downy, springy fiber, but this one happened to be quite long. And Kelsey did an amazing job cleaning it. She washed it for all of us and then divided them up. It was, looking back, I can't believe that she did all of that. My dad was palliative at that time, and she just took care of it, and it was incredible. Probably the biggest gift that she could have given me at that moment was doing that. And otherwise all of this would still be sitting in my stash and none of it would be washed. And my original plan was to comb all of this because it's so long and it was just beautiful. The problem was just the time and energy to get my hackles out and get it combed. I just wasn't getting it done. So after lock popping, I actually ended up carding the rest of it. And I talked about this on the podcast quite a bit. Once I had it all lock popped, it was really just a matter of getting it onto the carder. After about 2 passes, so if you look here at the back there in the corner, you can see those bats. That's after only the first pass off of my brother drum carder. I have a 90 TPI liquor in with a 120 TPI Swift, and the Swift is the big drum, and then the liquor in is the little brush at the front that lays the fiber onto the Swift. And the lock popping made all the difference. Getting it all carded meant that I could actually get it done. So the yarn is finished. The yarn is done. I don't know how I got it all done, but I got it all done. And actually I left the totals in the other room. This is washed, it is finished. I have this little baby skein that came off of the end. This is chain plied, but what I'm going to use it for is actually one of the dyeing samples, or I'll keep it as the sort of what the yarn looked like, and I'll leave it undyed and leave it as like the sort of control, if you will. My plan is, remember a couple of shows ago, I showed you all of my crazy dyeing that I had done and the 100 skeins of all of the samples that I had done. I was going through all of these the other day. So these were skeins that were over dyed, and these are triads, and they're all different breeds. And you can see that even just the purples here, the different breeds take the dye differently. And so I was going through them the other day and looking at them, and just like with the Beaumont alpaca that I shared with you last show when I was deciding what I wanted to do for dyeing that and getting that going, I was looking at all of these and sort of deciding what I wanted to do to dye the Dorset. So from fleece to processing to spinning, plying, and then dyeing and getting it into a project. So that's sort of the long-term plan with this, and I'll show this to you up close. That's a really nice ply angle, sitting about somewhere between 40 and 45 degrees. If I had a gun to my head, I would say it's about 43 degrees. 3 ply, very round, very bouncy and springy. I'll pull it out of my, I'll pull it out of the skein to show you the bounce in just a moment. I have only about 1,000 yards. If I had 2-plied it, I would have enough for a very, very light fingering weight sweater, because I would have ended up with probably 1,500 yards of 2-ply. Because I decided to 3-ply it, I've ended up with a less amount of yardage. Whether I can get an entire sweater out of it with a really nice fabric, I'm not sure. So swatching will be next, and then I'll go from there. I want this to be a sweater yarn, so if I hold my one hand steady. So I've got my one hand over here is, I'm just holding it steady. The other one I'm pulling. So you can see there's about 3/4 of an inch of elasticity. About that, 0.75. I'd have to calculate the percentage of that. But I'll show you the yarn up close. I'm just, you know what I'm really happy with? What I'm really happy with, as I sort of show it off here, is how even and how consistent it was. So I didn't have to go through the act of doing a ton of combing to get a really, really beautiful, consistent yarn. What I really needed was impeccable fiber prep from the lock. So getting those, the little tips off, and I can pop a little photo in here since I didn't have one to show you guys. You can see how the tips, and I'll throw it up in a sec, so you're probably like, what do you mean that you can see? The tips of this were Tippy, and they needed to be sort of removed, and that's where the lock pop really came in. So you can see those tips, they were just sort of a little bit compacted, a little bit, they just needed to be opened up. So by lock popping them and just getting them to open up, and then lock popping the cut end and getting all the second cuts out, getting all the vegetable matter out, getting anything that was any little niggly thing, and it was a very, very good fleece to begin with, so that made it a lot easier. But taking that extra step and doing the lock pop and then feeding it onto the carder, rather than making clouds, which we'll talk about in a second, but just feeding them onto the carder straight on. And I didn't worry about whether it was tip first or butt first or anything like that, but I did feed them on parallel to one another. I did line the locks up so that they were aligned, so they weren't going onto the carder sideways. So I did put them on straight on. But pulling the bats off, it meant I had such beautiful, airy, smooth bats. And when we talk about smooth bats, we're talking about fibers that are actually quite aligned and quite parallel to one another. They're not combed. There's still that sort of slight disorganization. You're not going to get that beautiful worsted prep unless you take the time to hackle or comb. But with the carding, if you slide the fibers on so that they're parallel to one another, it does help with just creating Rebecca, you just nailed it, the most worsted bat possible. So when we talk about smooth bats, we're talking about the most worsted bat possible. And that's what I did with this yarn. And without having to go through that added time consuming step of combing, and instead being able to card, that's what was created from these locks. And it's just taking the time to get those locks open, get them, and then feeding them parallel on the drum of the drum carder. So I've ended up with 4. This is kind of a little mini skein. I think my yardage was like 980 something prior to washing. So now I have to go back, rewind, reskein, recount. But this is the finished yarn. So this is all of it here. But like I said, I actually could probably do a field day out of this, just because it's got the gauge is actually a teeny tiny bit more open, and it's a nice shape. It's that drop shoulder. It's kind of like what I'm wearing. This is a commercial cardigan. It's a store-bought one. It's quite warm. It's muggy. We're having really muggy kind of weather. But something that's a little bit more open, a little bit slightly looser gauge, like maybe sort of 4.4. I wish there was a needle size that was 4.25 millimeters. I wish there was something between 4 millimeters and 4.5 millimeters. I know that sounds crazy, but I wish that there was a needle size in between. So yeah, when I go to swatch this, it'll be sort of a matter of like 3.5 millimeter needles or 4 millimeter needles. Maybe 4.5s, but I feel like that would be a bit high. I feel like the fabric would be a bit too gauzy. So I would put this sort of in a heavy sport, very, very, very light DK. I would say this is a sport weight yarn. Probably it's about 14 wraps per inch, maybe 16 wraps per inch actually, now that I'm showing it to you guys and I'm making all these claims without actually having checked. And of course I don't check because I kind of have this stuff memorized. But then I make these claims and I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally what it is. And then I actually check it later and I'm like, that's not at all what it is. my wraps per inch card is here. So I'm really curious. It's nice to be able to wax poetic about a big spin like this. I don't finish big spins like this very often. So when I check, I'm going to switch cameras. When I check my wraps per inch on a yarn like this, I actually hold it slightly under pressure. So underneath, I'm actually squeezing the two yarns together and I'm holding them under a slight amount of pressure. And the reason for that is because, and I'm not holding it tightly, I'm not strangling it, but the reason for that is that when you're knitting with your yarns, crocheting with your yarns, having it under tension on the loom, anything that puts your yarn under tension is going to change your gauge. So when I used to check my wraps per inch on my yarns, I wouldn't put any tension on them and I'd be like, oh, this is about, let's see, about 12 wraps per inch. The thing is that that's leaving all of that air in the yarn and that loft in the yarn. And so then when I would go to do a gauge swatch and I would go to check the yarn, in that fabric, the fabric felt kind of gauzy and it felt a little bit too airy. And so I would knit my sweaters and whatnot and kind of carry on because you don't know what you don't know when you're first learning. And I would sort of end up with these fabrics in these sweaters that just didn't feel quite as structurally sound as I thought that they maybe should. They felt a little bit more open, a little bit more gauzy. They had lovely drape and they're easy to wear, but in terms of pilling and some of that sort of was an issue with some of my early sweaters. Whereas if you hold on to the yarn slightly and you put it under a slight amount of tension, all of a sudden your wraps per inch goes up to like 16, even 18. Well, that's a completely different needle size. And that's a completely different fabric. If you were to go with like, say 12 wraps per inch, that's a solid sport. Even for some people, a very light DK, depending on sort of what they use for their gauge. When I start to get to like 4 millimeters, 4.5 millimeter knitting needles, which is like US size 7-ish, I start to sort of think like that's sort of getting into DK territory for me personally. For me, sport weight is sort of in the like 3 millimeter knitting needle category. So 3 millimeters is what? I need help with needle sizes, you guys. 3 millimeters would be like a US size 2.5, 3. And so to me, that's like a sport weight yarn. Well, when you're getting into like 16 wraps per inch under a slight amount of tension, or even 18 wraps per inch under a slight amount of tension, for me, now I'm starting to think about like 3.5 millimeter knitting needles, US size 2.5, US size 3, those kind of sizes. So for those new to working with your yarn, the big difference between commercial yarn that you buy in the knitting shop and yarn that you buy or that you spin yourself and that you make yourself, the big difference is the lack of a ball band. You have to figure out all of this information yourself. You have to figure out what you've spun, whether it's a sport weight, DK weight, worsted weight, and then you have to start swatching with needles and creating those little squares of fabric yourself to sort of get an idea. And it's not because I let gauge sort of rule the roost. Gauge for me, I treat it as sort of a bit of it's a guidepost. I tend to knit my sweaters with positive ease, so it doesn't matter if my gauge is off by half a stitch. However, you have to kind of figure all that stuff out yourself. So make sure that you've got enough fiber to spin enough yarn to swatch, to sample, all that kind of stuff. And then in terms of dyeing and colors, I don't know, you guys, I'm actually kind of leaning toward one of these murky kind of khaki, yellowy, like one of these kind of greeny ones. So these were dyed with over dye. I know I'm wearing a very similar color. I have a one-track mind, you guys, seriously. I just love these colors. I also really love these colors in here. I just don't know if I want an entire sweater in those colors. So it's nice to be able to have a sweater in a color like this that I can then wear a t-shirt like this with. Does that make sense? So I was looking at these. So these were 80-20 turquoise and yellow. And then I over dyed them with 0.5% brown. And that was how I got these sort of warm, very warm greens. and this sort of warm golden yellow that had more depth and more interest than just straight up golden yellow dye. These were more interesting. They were muddier. They were a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more interesting. So this fiber here, this is Suffolk, and this is Rambouillet, and you can see how the two wools took the colors differently. And these were all in the same dye pot. But, you know, one of these is Charollais, one of these was, this was Shetland Murret, so this was the color of my hair first to start, and then I overdyed it, so quite a bit darker than the rest, very green-brown, rather than being gold. This one here is Shetland, so it took the dye differently. One of these is Icelandic. Anyhow, yeah, so I was looking at one of these. I was also looking at one of these greens and then maybe adding a little bit of brown to them, because these are the triads that I had done. Let me just pull them out. These are triads. So these were 60% yellow, 20% magenta, 20% turquoise. And I sort of thought one of these would be incredible with a little bit of brown added to it, or maybe even a little bit of gray to cool it down. It's whether you adding brown warms it up, adding gray it dulls it, but it leaves it the same value, and adding black cools it and darkens it. So you've got sort of those three options if you want to make the color a little bit more nuanced. So I know Dion, she's laughing at me with the colors. Khaki, shocker. I know. But the nice thing about having the different sheep breeds having been dyed is I've got it down here. So we're thinking about 3D spiral crimp. We're thinking about chalky. They take the dye in kind of a chalky way. They don't have as many dye spots as the fine wools do. So we're thinking about sort of springy yarns that are three-dimensional crimp. They don't reflect the color in the same way that the long, lustrous long wools do, especially when they're spun worsted. So we're thinking about like not as much, there's not that vibrance necessarily there, slightly chalky appearance. So then when I look at my samples, it's like, hey, where are my downs? So this is my Suffolk, that's a down. This is Charollais, which is a down. Okay, so this is probably... These three are, one of these is Cheviot too. I think this one is Charollais, this one is Cheviot, I think. Yeah, Cheviot, and then this one is the Suffolk. And so these three are going to be the ones that this is going to look like. Probably the Cheviot in here is probably close to what this is going to look like. So now I have an opportunity to sort of go, okay, that's what that will come out with on downs. Down-like fibers and true downs, and so they're going to look a little bit like that. They're not going to be as vibrant as the finer wools, and they're going to have a slightly chalky appearance. And so do I like that? Does that work for me, or do I want to go with something that's a little bit more vibrant? Probably not if you've met me, but that's okay, because some would, and it would be amazing. It would be incredible. It's just I don't sort of tend toward those colors. However, if you took these gorgeous triad purples that are 60% magenta and then 20% yellow, 20% turquoise, and added a little bit of brown to that to make it a little bit warmer, or some gray to desaturate it, now we're talking. And again, I can pull out the downs and be like, okay, so I've got a Dorset down. It's going to look downy. This is probably what it's going to look like versus the Rambouillet that's much brighter. And I don't think it's going to register on the camera quite to the same extent as it does in real life. But that was the reason for doing all of this, was to do this. And you can see how excited I get about it. So I'll keep you guys posted, because that's the whole point, is that these projects from the start to the finish, like this is what I've been working towards for so long, and now to sort of feel like I'm finally there, it's just, it feels great. It feels great. Oh, Amy says 4.25 millimeters does exist. Knit Pro sells them. Thank you, Amy. I'm gonna look that up, Do you know how many times I want a needle size in between 4 and 4.5? Like all the time. So thank you, Amy. That's wonderful. So it does exist. Okay, Nicole, you and I, we have to look it up and see if we can find the 4.25 from Knit Pro. Wonderbar. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to share with you, and I forgot to play the fiber prep sort of show notes thingy at the beginning of all of this, but this is all included, Rebecca, because she does our timestamps during the show. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This is all still fiber prep. It's all still under the same umbrella. So I wanted to share with you next. This is a project that I've been working on for quite a long time, and I think probably the best thing to do is to show you guys in here. I started this as a stash busting project, and then I sort of realized that I was messing around with contrast of proportion. I don't know if you guys have noticed, this has been hitting me over and over and over again this year, and I feel like it's been the same for Rebecca, but I don't want to put words in her mouth, so I'll let her agree or disagree in the chat. But I feel like this year, everything that we have talked about or that we touch on, or projects that I'm working on, projects that she's working on, projects that you guys are sharing in the community, especially on the Slack channel, especially, I feel like Year of Color just keeps coming back again and again and again and again. Like I feel like it keeps rearing its head. Its beautiful head, not an ugly head at all, a beautiful head all the time. Like it just keeps coming up again and again and again and again. And this is another one of those projects. So I have been going through my stash over the last few years. I've been really trying to catalog it, organize it. I also am making a conscious effort to really stash down. And which Mike was really questioning me about that last week, because I brought home 2 fleeces from a friend who's moving, and an Icelandic and a Shetland, which I'm really excited to work with at some point this year. Her and I had bought them years ago, and they kind of ended up washed and in her garage. And I think at the time I just felt really overwhelmed with any more fleece. And I just I knew they were there, but I just kind of put them in the back of my mind and literally put them away. Anyways, we got in touch with each other a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "Can you please take these fleeces off my hands? I don't want any money for them. I just want them gone." And so I've got a huge Icelandic fleece and then quite a hefty Shetland fleece. I'm super excited about getting into them this summer. But I started going through all my stash and finding all this stuff that had really kind of amassed in my stash. And it's not that I had forgotten about stuff, but it's just sometimes you just want to get stuff moved along. This fiber was definitely some of that fiber. So this was a big, 2 big bumps of Targhee that Katrina had dyed for me many years ago. Because my dad was still around. It was prior to the pandemic. We're talking 2017, maybe 2016 even. And so I pulled it out. It was quite fulled. It was quite compacted. It needed to be carded, opened up. And then I pulled out a braid of sort of this kind of greeny, orangey yellow. I think I have it here actually to show you. That had been dyed by my friend Marianne of Smith & You up in Kamloops years ago. And again, it had been in my stash for a really long time. So this was the bump of the Targhee. It's sort of this denim-y blue. I can't remember what Katrina calls this color, but it's sort of this denim blue. It's got a little bit of gray in it to create that kind of moody, rich blue. And then this was the braid of organic Polworth and silk. And this was the blend is quite high silk. It's something like 25, or I want to say even 40% silk. With the Polworth, and this yellowy orange is quite warm. It's quite orange, and it's got these little hits of kind of khaki green in it. And so this is sort of what a length of the fiber sort of looks like. Not as much green. It's actually very yellow. The whole thing is quite yellow. I had the thought back when I bought this stuff years ago. I had the thought to spin the 2 braids. I had 2 braids. Spin the 2 braids and then to 2 different bobbins, and then ply them together and then make a big shawl. The thing is, I just don't wear shawls anymore, and it's because they're so warm. So when we were doing contrast of proportion back in October, and if you're a Patreon member, you can go back and find all of this content. It's just the October spinning pearls, and it's the contrast of proportion. I started making all of these samples, and once I started making the samples, I kind of got a bit addicted. And it was all about the proportions of the blue, how much blue to card with how much orange. And so my first sample was this one down below us, and that was 50-50. And then I started playing with Goth's numbers. And what I eventually landed on was the one that's on the far side there. I don't know if that's your far right. It's my far right. And what I ended up doing as well to make it into a tweed yarn and make it a little bit more interesting, add a little bit of depth, a little bit of texture and nuance. This was sari silk, gorgeous royal blue sari silk from Chaotic Fibers that I bought at Fibers West, again, probably 10 years ago. And it's got some gorgeous teal and a little bit of purple, but overall it's royal blue. And I carded that in based on 50%. 50 grams of fibers. My drum carder can handle about 25 to 30 grams of fiber at a time. So if I do 2 25-gram bats, that's sort of 50 grams of fiber. So I weighed it all out based on 50 grams. So I did 2% of the blue, I did 2% of the sari silk. So that works out to 1 gram. And then I went from there. And honestly, these are all my samples and all the stuff, but this is blending it on the drum carder. The thing is that to get that sari silk really blended in and to get these really blended nests of fiber, I have to put it through my drum carder quite a number of times. And so unfortunately it's ended up being a real labor of love. And I've already spun one bobbin that was the fiber that I had initially blended and had initially made for October. I finished spinning this bobbin and then I ended up just putting it aside because I knew that I needed at least 3 more bobbins to make a 3-ply. So it was sort of like, okay, well, I did the first bobbin, but then, I've got the rest of the color contrast content to create for 2023. I'll have to put this on hold until 2024 and then pick it back up again. And I knew that I would because, again, I'm trying to stash down and I'm trying to get stuff out of my stash. And I really, really, really like the yarn, and I really, really, really want to knit. I should have had this ready to go to show you guys. I really want to knit. I think it'll work. Originally, I had chosen a pattern by Anka's Trick, but what I really want to do is, I think it's Peary leaves. It was a Shetland Wool Week pattern, I think, and it's just been a couple of years ago it was released, but it's tweedy. It's got an all over lace pattern. I think it would just be really pretty. I have tons of fiber, so I can spin till the cows come home to get this all done. I'll have more than enough yarn for the sweater is out of DK weight, but I can adjust the gauge if I want and size down. It's knit on what was it? I think you need 1,000. I can't remember. I need quite a bit of yarn. So this is bobbin number 2. I got this all carded. Dear James. He helped me get it all carded up. And then this is fiber everywhere. This is the beginnings of bobbin number bobbin number 3. Now this is what I wanted to talk about as well. This happened with my capstone project with my my field day cardigan. That's the marled yarn. That was my capstone. If you go back in the last sort of within the last 10 episodes, there's if you look in the title for capstone, that's the yarn that I'm talking about. This is what happened with my capstone, where I carded and carded and carded and carded, and I got super sick of carding, and I really want a electric carder. But as I carded and as I sort of made all of my nests of fiber, if you look at all of these, they all kind of look a little bit different, and some of them are like really blue. And some of them are really gold, and some of them are really gray. And of course the orange desaturates the blue. When you have that complement blend, the whole purpose of it is to desaturate. That's what we're going for. I don't particularly like these colors. I don't particularly like the blue color. So the whole idea is making this sort of moody gray, kind of chromatic gray, kind of nuanced color. That's the whole point. But I have really found, and this is where I can really see the importance, and Dion and I talk about this all the time, the importance of taking the time to look at your fiber prep as you're carding and as you're making your stuff. Because unlike an all white fleece, where the purpose of, say, doing a little bit of lock popping before you go to blend and everything is to get those locks open so that they card beautifully. When you're carding color like this and you're creating blends, the whole purpose is to create a relatively homogeneous blend. Like, I want the yarn over in the end to be very homogeneous. I don't want to have striping. I don't want to have any areas of the sweater where it looks like it's where the sort of these took over, and then another area of the sweater where this took over. Because look at how different those two are. And so what I've had to do as I've continued carding and as I've continued making bits and pieces, this is the next batch to go in terms of carding and getting it all ready, is recarding these. So taking these two, this is very yellow and orange, and this is very blue, ripping these two apart, recarding them and combining them so that you come out with something somewhere in the middle. And that was one of the things that I did not take the time to do when I did my capstone, and I in hindsight, I wish that I had. And I think it's important to kind of take that extra time every so often to just make sure that our fiber prep is on point and that we are taking that extra time. So my original plan with this sweater was to actually spin a 4-ply. When you look at the samples, and this is for anybody who wasn't around back then, when you look at the samples, these are actually all 4-ply. So this one right here is a traditional 4-ply. It was just 4 bobbins, 4 singles plied together in a traditional 4-ply. The one in the middle here is actually a cable. So it was 2 plies plied together to create that chain link look. It's difficult to see because of how fuzzy the yarns were from a carded prep, not tons and tons of twist, just a really kind of subtle yarn. In real life, that yarn is stunning. I think on the photo, it kind of looks a little bit desaturated and a little bit flat, but in real life, it's actually really pretty. The far yarn, the one that's the color combination that I finally decided to go with, it has the 2% sari silk. That one is actually a Hauser yarn. So that's where you spin 4 singles, and then you take 2 and you apply them in the same direction that you spun the singles, and then you take the other 2 and you do the same thing, and then you ply them together in the opposite direction. So you spin all of your singles. Let's just say that we're going to spin them in the clockwise direction, so going Z twist, let's just pretend. So we're going to spin all of our singles clockwise in the Z spun direction to the right. And then you take 2 of the bobbins and you also spin them together in the clockwise position, going to the right in the Z position, in the Z direction. And then you take the other 2 and you do the same thing. And then when you're ready to ply them, you take those 2 Z spun yarns that have been plied together. Then you ply them in the counterclockwise, or the S direction, to the left. And so it makes this really interesting, very high twist yarn that has sort of a slightly different character to it than a traditional 4-ply does. It almost kind of acts a little bit like an opposing ply, which is another type of yarn. This is why, full circle, this is why we're doing this book, is to bring language to some of these yarn structures that create some really incredible fabrics. They're all in here. And so as we move to the next level as spinners, advancing from beginner to intermediate, intermediate to advanced intermediate, advanced intermediate to advanced spinners, a lot of the language that we're looking for is in here. hence doing that book study. So that Hauser yarn, the cable yarn, traditionally spun yarns, those are all in that book, and we'll be talking about them more as the year goes on. Yeah, Dion says carding for color is not a fast process, and that is absolutely true. It is just not a fast process. It takes time, it takes energy. It just does. It just does. And no, I didn't spin them long draw. It's just they're really, really fuzzy woolen. I spun them continuous back, not tons of twist. I don't tend to put a ton of twist in my Hauser yarns and my cabled yarns because I'm not using them for socks. And if you don't put in as much twist in the singles, then you don't have to spend quite as much time when you're plying them. And they still pop and come into place, but then they have a slightly fuzzy appearance in terms of like the different singles. So it's a compromise. All right. Yeah, you know what, Rebecca, she said, I told Jared I didn't want a carder unless it's electric. I think there is a lot of wisdom there. I think in hindsight, I wish I had spent the money at the outset and just coughed it up for an electric carder. I think there's definitely some wisdom there for sure. All right, more fleece. I'm super excited to share this with you. This is another one of the fleeces that Kelsey and Diana and Kelsey's mom and I split. So this is, I'm getting to the end of these fleeces, but I'm not quite there yet. So I've got this one, which is a Rideau Arcott Charollais blend. So it's the sheep was a blend of those two breeds, and which has created a really interesting fleece. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I also have a Rideau Arcott that's left, and I think, oh, and then I've got a Cotswold. So I know for sure I've got 3 of these left. And I just thought, what I did was I literally finished this little baby skein of the Dorset. I chain plied this last little bit to clear off the bobbins. And then I immediately went to the garage and got the next one. I didn't even pay attention to which bag I grabbed out of my bins. I just grabbed the first one that I saw and I immediately started working on it because I was like, I have to keep the momentum going. So you can see here a photo of the fleece. This is a really interesting fleece because it's got quite a combination of, it has quite a combination of fibers in here. So there's this stuff, and it's very tippy, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it's got this stuff in here that's sort of crimpy and very fine. It's very fine. It's very, definitely next to the skin soft. Downy, springy and springy looking. It's definitely sort of a slightly longer lock. And then there's this. So there's that. And then there's this stuff in there. So there's definitely some variety. This is silkier. It's about the same length, but this has more crimp. This has slightly less. They're about the same length. They're about, I didn't actually look. I meant to. Yeah, they're about 5 inches. 5 inches. So what I've been doing is going through the fleece and just removing the tips. So just pulling them off with my finger and just getting rid of them. And then what I did, so I did a whole bunch of it one morning. And then what I did was I started pulling them apart just into clouds. I had always planned to do this with this fleece because then I figured, oh, I just card that. Just kind of eliminates having to do anything else with it. So I could just pull these out lock by lock, get rid of the tip, pull that off to the side, pull it out, and then Bob's your uncle and keep on going. Grand plans. That's what I thought that I would do. Look at this. Isn't that incredible? Look at that. Look at that crimp. Oh, amazing. So just pulling off all these tips. And it actually is pretty fast. Right? And then you do the thing, make a cloud, and then card it. So that's what you saw in all those photos just a second ago. That's what I was doing with all of this. So here, I was going through all of it, pulling off all the tips, making all of my, that cloud, that carding cloud there on the side. I took that, threw that on the drum carder, created these. So when I did that, I created all of these nests. The problem, best laid plans, It creates beautiful, beautiful prep. I really like spinning from smaller bats. I don't like coming off the carder and then having to deal with a big bat. I tend to card until I can get little nests of fiber, like what I did where you saw in the Targhee Polwar spin, where I have two sort of sides of the drum carder, and I can card two of these at once, because then I pull these off and this is what I spin from. So I'll start at the one end. This is a very teaching heavy episode. It's probably why it's taking so long. And then I'll go all the way along, pre-draft it out, and then I'll strip it if I need to. So then if it's too much fiber to hold, then I'll strip it really gently and cut it down even a little bit more. And then I'll start at the one end and I'll pre-draft that even again. And then I'll start spinning. Yes, yes. This is the problem. So this was 4 passes on the drum carder, and I was still getting stuff in there that wasn't nicely carded and nicely blended. This is actually like an almost completely intact lock in here that I've now managed to pull apart a little bit. But when I encounter that in spinning, it creates a little bit of a, you get to that part in your spinning and sort of you've been carrying along and you've got this gorgeous prep, and then you kind of end up with this hiccup of this like partially carded lock that just got through. So, you know, on the 4 passes, it just got through, and it didn't get picked out. And that, to be honest, it's just kind of annoying. And it really slows me down in the spinning process, because then I want to go back and I want to fix it and I want to pull out the little bit and blah, 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 blah. And it's annoying. So there's a couple of things that you can do. You can go ahead and still do the thing, and do it this way and do 3 or 4 passes on your drum carder, pull them all off. You can diz them off, that helps. You can pull them all off, diz them off your blending board. You can do what I just did and go through, pre-draft them all, divide them up, make them smaller. But the other thing was I still had VM in it. There's still VM in here. So even though I had picked it all out, and even though I had opened up all the locks and everything, and I was spending all this time doing all of this, there's still VM in here. It's not as clean as it could be. I also am wondering if this fleece needs to be rewashed, because now that I've got this all carded, and the other day I started like playing with this stuff, and it feels like there's still grease in here. It feels like there's still a bit of lanolin in here. So I think the fleece itself actually needs to be rewashed as well. So then I kind of had a little bit of a think. Finished carding all of this. Finished carding all of the Targhee Polwar, and I was sort of like, you know, I don't want to admit it, but I think I probably actually need to lock pop this stuff. So what I did was I still went through, took out all the tips, but then in Maker Morning the other morning, I started lock popping it. And so this is what I got after lock popping. It's much cleaner. There's no VM left. It's still a little bit, I can still feel a teeny tiny bit of grease, just a very, very small amount. So I've got a bin full of all of this lock popped stuff. That's all lock popped, and that will now get carded, and I'll pull that off and see at that point if I need to either rewash or if that is going to work. Pulling off the tips and then lock popping sped me up 100-fold. And I'm hoping that, like the Dorset, I'll only have to card once or twice. So the plan, hopefully, is card once, pull the bats off, break them down, card a second time for the smaller nests. That's the plan. If that can speed me up, carding takes a huge amount of time. The theme of this show, carding takes time. If I can speed that part up by lock popping, because I can sit and lock pop and get a lot done in a very short period of time, I'll take that trade-off. So that's the Rideau Arcott Charollais blend that Chelsea bought and split with all of us. And I've got a lot here. This is a lot of fiber. It's more than the Dorset. Sorry for the noise. It's more than the Dorset. I don't think the Dorset fleece was quite as big as this one. This feels pretty hefty. that was the other thing. I've started to make sure, and actually Melissa encouraged me to do this, Melly Knits. She said to me that it would be a really good idea to weigh everything. So start to get a little bit more structured about weighing the fleeces before I start working with them, and then getting them, and then once you prep them, weigh them again, spin them, weigh them again, and then see how much loss I'm getting. She estimates in her stuff that across breeds, across fleeces, she sort of loses between 20 and 50%. That's a huge range. In general, though, it's about 30%. So yeah, it's across, Rebecca. All right, I'm gonna start losing my voice. I have an appointment this afternoon with Mike that we're having a discussion, got an education thing for James that we have to do, and which is great, but I'm not gonna have any voice, and she's gonna be asking us all these questions. I'd be like, okay, I have a very exciting thing to share with you guys. So let's do that, and then we'll do community participation, and we'll call it a day. I will share my moon tea to share with you next time. There's not really a whole lot of progress on it, just that I've done the front. I was really mostly excited to just show it to you guys because I haven't shown it off yet. And so this is out of my Finn fleece that I processed a couple of years ago. The yarn's been sitting in stash, and that's where I'm at now. The cool thing about the moon tea is that you do a 1x1 ribbed band that comes down, and the one on the other side will come down and meet as well, and then you overlap them, knit the two together across, and that creates this lovely V-neck, and then you just keep on knitting. So lots of positive ease. It's not going to be really super long. It's going to be a cropped tee that I can tuck into high-waisted shorts, high-waisted jeans, and skirts. And yeah, it's coming along. So that's by Ozetta, Haley Smedley on Ravelry, and it's the moon tea, moon set tea. It's a little bit of a mouthful. All right, yeah, so I'm super excited to share this with you guys, and I will see you on the other side. So as some of you know, Norah had a project that she was doing for school that was to learn a new skill. And so she already kind of knew how to crochet a little bit, but not a ton. And she really wanted to make a sweater, and I was actually really surprised. I thought she would want to take on something quite a bit smaller, but she did this herself. I did all of the knitting. Don't get me wrong, I did do all of the knitting, but she did all of the crochet. So this is the Jethro cardigan by Tanis LaValle, and you knit a whole bunch of granny squares, and then you crochet them together in a sort of as you go method that works really super well because it also makes the squares that little bit bigger. There's a couple of things that Norah wishes that she had changed, and we talked about it quite a lot after it was finished, but the pattern has you make X number of squares, whatever the squares are, however many you need to make the body of the sweater, and depending on the size of your squares, that will sort of help to make it the width that you need it to fit your body, but also the length that you need to make it the however long you want it to be. Norah wanted a longer sweater, and I had said to her when she finished crocheting all of her squares that she probably should add 2 more to each bottom front and 5 more to the bottom at the back. And I think by then she was so burned out. She'd made well over 30 of these things. I think she was just kind of done. She should have. And I should have just done them for her and made them for her just to help her to get them done. She had more than learned the skill. And because she was quite disappointed when she finished it that it wasn't longer. She didn't need bigger squares because she didn't need it to be any wider. As it is, this thing fits me. It's quite wide. It's cropped on me because I'm obviously taller than Norah, but it fits me. It's the length. So her squares were 3.25 inches across and like they're square, right? So on each side. My squares are 3.5 inches each side, and because they're square, obviously. So now I'm actually kind of wondering if I'm going to have to do the same. I'm probably going to have to add a row to the bottom and add 9 more squares. So 4 to the front, 5 to the back, which is kind of like, now you're at over 40 squares. So like that's getting to be a lot of squares, but it'll use up a lot of yarn. So that was the one thing. She was disappointed about that. She wished that she had made it longer. The problem with the crochet together as you go method, and I don't know if I have a really good photo, but here you can see the back of it. You basically work from the bottom up, and you after you have all your squares, you lay them out how you want them, and then you attach them and crochet around the outside, attaching them, and you work your way up all the way. Sort of you start from back here, you work all your way up, all the way across, all the way down, and then you sew up your sides. And I think she wishes that I think because of that, that was why she didn't want to add the extra squares. She had done all that work to attach it all, and to go and add another row would have kind of it would have messed it up. It wouldn't have looked quite as polished, because there would have been so obviously an added row. So yeah, you need to add squares before you start sewing them together and crocheting them together. It's a great pattern. It's many, many, many pages. It's very, very clear as to what to do. It's obviously a drop shoulder. It's a very blocky cardigan. There's no shaping. There's no shape to it. It's an easy pattern. You go ahead after you're done. You go ahead and pick up all your stitches for knitting at the bottom to do your bottom band. Norah asked me to add an extra inch at the bottom there, so her ribbing is 4 inches instead of 3. It's okay. Again, I wish I had added length and by more crocheted squares. I think it would have looked, I think it would have been really what she wanted. But she's super, super happy with it. She's wearing it today for school. And after you do the bottom band, then you go and you do the button band. It was really, really hard to find buttons for this sweater. Our local sewing store that used to have tons of buttons closed down a couple of years ago, and now there's really nowhere to go. My local yarn shop, we found buttons that work. They look great. They've got little flowers insignia on them and carved in. They're really, really pretty. But I know she really wanted pink or purple buttons. Like, that was what would have really made her heart sing. And then the other piece was the sleeves. So in the pattern, Tanis talks about for sleeves for kids, you can add in the contrast colors and all the different colors in the sleeve. And Eveline actually really nailed it the other day when I shared the photos on the Slack channel. She really felt that doing that color striping on the sleeve really tied the knitting and the crochet together, and I have to admit I completely agree. I like the look of the solid sleeves as well. I know that's what I'll do for mine, but I think for a kid with all the different colors and just to bring it all together and tie it all together, this works really, really well. This is her best friend Lola. We were out for a walk in Fort Langley, and I asked Norah if I could take some photos of her sweater for her. So yeah, Nora's just living her best life right now. She's just having a blast. So that is it. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, the striping on the sleeves is just, it's a great, yeah. And the one that Tanis made for her daughter, there's photos of it in the pattern, and there's photos of it on the pattern page on Ravelry. It's really cute. It's really cute. So yeah, I have to get going on mine, because I've been working so much on fiber prep recently. I haven't really gotten anything else done, but I'm not complaining, because the summer there will be lots of opportunity where I'm like sitting and waiting, and I do a lot of knitting and in the summer. So super cool. All right, let's do community participation. Let me pull it all up and we'll get that going, because oh no, our credits aren't working. Where did they go? Oh no. That's weird. Our credits are gone. Wonder if they got archived by accident by Mike. He's done that a few times where he's archived something and then they're just gone. I have to go find them and pull them back. All right, I think I found them. Let's see. Okay, so I've been trying to get to this community participation for, I know, oh, it was it was the community participation from another, that wasn't actually the credits. It was like the full, when I've done community participation in the past. So note to self, I have to find those credits because that is not the right ones. You probably heard the clicking in the background as I was putting stuff away. I actually, with all of this stashing down that I have been doing, I use these bins. They're 17-liter clear bins to hold all my stuff and keep it all organized in the garage. They're not airtight, so I do keep stuff in plastic just to keep, we've got pantry moths out there, so I just keep everything clean, everything confined. But I had actually managed to clear 2 of my bins and get them like cleared out, which is huge. I've got like 17 of them, and I got 2 of them cleared out. And now this fleece I've pulled from another bin, and I'm using one of my empty bins. But I said to Mike when I was looking at my wall of fiber over the weekend, I really am getting through it. Like I really am getting to the point where stuff is getting cleared out, and it feels so good because there's stuff out there and in my stash that I really want to work with, and like I really want to get going. And you know, getting these fleeces out, getting them working, getting working on them, getting more comfortable, just starting. That's my big problem, is just getting started. It feels overwhelming sometimes. All of this stuff is just, you know, it feels like I'm getting there. So anybody feeling a bit like you're not getting there, you just have to keep plugging away. You really do. All right, let's look at what you guys have been doing. We've been doing the 100 Days of Long Draw over on Instagram. It's kind of a community-wide spin along with Andrea Mowry. And this is from Dania. She's newly finished supported spindle spun Hanui wool. I've actually got a combo spin of Hanui that I've been trying to get to. Again, time, but it's from Bramble Ridge. It's these 2 braids. One is called, I think it's called Duck Mushroom Hunt. And then the other one is called Fun House. And the plan is to combo spin these. So spin one to one bobbin, one to the other bobbin, and ply them together for just an all over beautiful spin. I love combining braids of the same dyer because they use the same color. You know, it's the same yellow in both braids. It's the same green in both braids with slight variation, but not enough that it makes any difference. And they tend to combine really beautifully. So what a joy to spin, although my yarn is very inconsistent, still figuring out how to create even singles with supported spindles. That will come with time, Dania, and you did a beautiful job on this yarn. 300 yards, amazing. I love that photo too. This is from Greta. She's been playing with spindles. She borrowed them from our friend Diana Twist. Greta's the one that works in the studio at Sweet Georgia. And when Diana and I go in to do any filming, Greta's the one that we work with, and she's amazing. I am really enjoying spinning 15 minutes a day in the sun after picking up my youngest at school. We had sun, and now we're into this like blustery January weather, and so I'm looking forward to being able to do this as well, Greta, once the weather improves again. I spent time preparing roll legs, so I have fiber ready to spin, ready to go until next weekend. Amazing. This is from Rebecca, spinning on a historic trolley. Amazing. She's been making really good progress on her spindles while she's been traveling. It's been so much fun to follow along with what she's doing while she's away. This is from Shauna. Unfortunately, she posted yesterday that her dog got into the 3rd bobbin of singles, of the fiber, sorry, that was going to be her 3rd bobbin of singles. So she's now sort of, I think she was really bummed. She has the first 2 bobbins of this spin done, the Cheviot. She's doing a long draw 3-ply, but the 3rd single might not be quite as pretty as the first 2 because her dog got into it. All right, general makes and shares. This is all the stuff, you know, we were supposed to do this last show, so this stuff, for me, is all outdated now. So all of these shares that we've got, because they were for 2 shows ago, like last show, sorry, not 2 shows, last show. Now I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, oh my goodness, like there's so much more that's been posted since, but it's fun to go back and look at this stuff. This is from Dion. Here's a long spin that I've been working on for a while. I'm planning for a 3-ply. It's a 3 braids, 2 baby doll Southdown and alpaca, and then 1 Targhee. Baby doll Southdown and alpaca would be a really interesting blend because the baby doll is so bouncy and springy because it's a down. Combined with alpaca is very, very interesting. So, and then she's got the Targhee thrown in there as well. I love the look of that bobbin, Dion. Beautiful spinning. This is from Paulina. She took the time to chain ply the last 5 bobbins of her merino bamboo rainbow spin. It was spun on her drop spindles and then she chain plied it. Still need to do the calculations, but happy with how the plying worked out. It is beautiful, Paulina. I love this. And I think she's here today, which is lovely. This is from Lisa. Love this. She dyed a ton of fiber in various blues, greens, and purples, and then she did a kind of combo spin where she randomly picked a small chunk of fiber for her next addition to the single. It produced the yarn and the cardigan in the second photo, and she was inspired by Rebecca's combo work on the blending board. So she took all of her leftover chunks and randomly blended them and made row legs. Currently working using the yarn to make a Mobius cowl, so that was a different photo. But then this is also the sweater that she made from that yarn. It's just gorgeous, Lisa. Beautiful. This is from Florence. Just photos. I just love these colors. Look at that roving there that I think she's blended it or she got it from a mill, or I'm not totally sure. But that yarn and then the fabric that it's making for those socks. Amazing, Florence. Just beautiful. Totally my colors. This is from Sam. She's making pigtail yarn. So she wanted to put a bead at the end of every pigtail. This is Lister long wool for the one thread, and then it's being plied with Beaumont, which is a very fine wool. And slightly larger beads are making a big difference. So she was playing with this for a while and kind of posting her progress on the Slack channel. And then people were giving her tips and tricks to make this pigtail yarn. Beautiful. It's very slow to make, but holy smokes, is it gorgeous yarn. Again, this yarn is shown in Full Circle, Spinner's Book of Yarn. This is from Lisa, 100 Days of Spindle Spinning. She finally finished her navy blue silk alpaca and plied it up. And then this yarn was a silly willy-nilly single, 100% Targhee, and it was a 5-ply novelty yarn and a single ply done on suspended spindles. I just thought these were beautiful. I just wanted to show you guys the photos of these singles. I just thought they were gorgeous. And then she did that really fun yarn right here at the top of the grid. Just gorgeous. Beautiful. This is also from another Lisa in our community. Finished weaving in the ends of her, I think it's the Untuva, am I saying that right? Untuva slipover. Hand spun Gotland held with lace mohair. Isn't that incredible? The halo on that, Lisa, is probably so warm and beautiful. Loved that so much. And it's got that split hem at the bottom that I really like. I think it's really flattering on people. Looks really, really nice, Lisa. This is from another Lisa in our community. We have a lot of Lisas in our community. We've got a lot of Amandas, a lot of Lisas, a couple of Amy's, got a couple of Rebeccas, all spelled different ways. Yeah, it's funny, it's certain names. This is from Lisa. I love spinning, but I'm not crazy about plying. So sometimes I shove singles onto storage bobbins to get to later. So I finally dug all those bobbins out. I had a whole Cormo fleece that was done from before she moved away from California. She all as a 3-ply. She had a full CVM Cormo cross 3-ply fingering and half a BFL fleece done in 3-ply fingering. The total is roughly 6,700 yards of yarn. Amazing. I wish I had all of that yarn. Can you imagine the stuff you could weave? Oh, amazing. All the knitting, all the knitting. Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing what you do and for being a part of this community, for taking the plunge to join and to come to the live streams and just to be a part of what we do here. I obviously really appreciate each and every one of you taking the time out of your day to spend with me. We kind of waxed poetic a lot about fiber prep today and a lot about fleece and creating from the raw fleece. You do not need to be somebody working from raw fleece to find a place here. It's more just about the love of spinning and a passion for hand spun yarn, a passion for using our hand spun yarns. And if that speaks to you, please don't hesitate to jump in with us. I always forget to ask you to like and subscribe, so I will go ahead and do that now. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really does make a difference to my channel getting out there and you guys discovering it, and I so appreciate that. So it was so much fun to be able to talk about all the beautiful yarns today, share my stuff with you guys, and to share your stuff with you. I'm really hoping that next show I will have a sample of my Rideau Arcott Charollais cross. I keep calling it a blend. I think that's why Rebecca was confused. I kept calling it a blend. It's a cross. I'm hoping to have a sample of that for next time. And that would be really fun, so we can talk about a little bit more about that. And the difference between just carding versus the samples that I get from lock popping and then carding. So that'll be fun. I think that's it. I think that's all I have in me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful couple of weeks. I'll see you here next week, same time, same place for the Wool Circle, and 2 weeks from now for the live stream. And I hope I have some things to share with you then. Until next time, happy spinning, happy dreaming, happy making. Bye guys.